Hey guys, today we are in Revelation chapter 18 and Merry Christmas. It seems really weird reading this on Christmas Day, but we're almost done, so we're going to do it. Revelation chapter 18, leaving off of 17. If you remember, I said in 17 and 18 are the hardest verses in all of Revelation. And so I described 17 talking about it's the fall of Babylon, that this harlot, this prostitute, was overall the spiritual prostitute, that everybody was not following to God, but they were worshiping the Antichrist and Satan and demons and idols and everything. And so we saw the seven bowl judgments. And now today we will see the actual fall of Babylon. And so we can see here kind of the final edicts of the judgment for Babylon. And remember, Babylon is a very particular city of the Antichrist. And so the Antichrist will own the kingdom. He will own the world by multiple kingdoms with 10 kings, but Babylon, set on the Euphrates River, will be kind of the crown, the jewel in his crown. It is the creme la creme. It is the home of the Antichrist. It is the best of the best of the best. It is the center of everything that is anti-God. And so as we jump into 18, it says, after this, so after the vision of chapter 17, I saw another angel. Now, once again, we talked about this a lot, but another. This is still the word allos in Greek. So this means it's the same, but different. Why does that matter? A lot of people say here in chapter 18, the first angel is Jesus. I tend to say it is not Jesus because they use the word allos. It's the same, so it's the same type of angel, but it is a different angel. And it comes with all of the power that we're about to read because it's coming from the throne room of God with the edict of God. And so anything the voice of God has carries importance and carries power, the same as while we're reading the Bible. So I saw another angel, I would say not Jesus, coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory. And so you can see why people think that this is Jesus, right? There's power, there's glory, there's brightness, but we see multiple times in Scripture. Think about Moses. Every time he met with God, he came back and he had a radiance of God's glory about him. And so an angel in the throne room of God would have God's glory on him. But remember, the fifth bowl of judgment was darkness, right? So the world has gone completely dark. And now an angel ascends with the glory of God. Not only is it going to be bright, it's going to be super bright because they're in darkness. And he cried out with a mighty voice, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons. All the demons are there, right? We talked about in chapter 17 that at the end, everybody was going to turn on themselves because the ultimate goal is to worship Satan. And so here, Babylon, kind of the final great stronghold of Satan, all the demons are there, right? It's a dwelling place for so all the evil is there. It's a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast. As vultures are circling, the demons are circling, the vultures are circling, the beasts are circling. They know death and destruction is about to come. This is about to be the end, and so they are circling. For all nations have drunk the wine of passion of her sexual immorality. Now remember, we're still going off of chapter 17, this idea of harlot, of prostitute, right? So it's not that they are, even though they are committing sexual immorality, it's talking more about their spiritual darkness, right? So they have turned away from God and turned to everything that is anti-God, right? They, instead of chasing after God, their bride, they chased after a prostitute, somebody other than their spouse, which is any other religion. So just remember, I know it's been the weekend, remember that we're using this terminology. And the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her. The merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of their luxurious living. So we can see that the kings, the merchants, everybody has been made great in Babylon, right? So everybody that is there, even though they're evil, even though they're going to hell, earthly status, they are the best of the best. They are the rich of the rich. They've lived the highest life. They've lived the life that everybody in the world has wanted to live, because they are literally in cahoots, I guess, with Satan, right? So there's no holds bar for these folks. Then I heard another voice. There's that word again, allos, right? A same but different. So another angel from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues." This is a call for the Christians to come out of Babylon. Notice that even through all of this, there are still Christians in Babylon. Now, is this the 144,000 that are sealed? I would tend to say that these are those, and the people who the 144,000 are still sharing the gospel with and are communicating. So even in all these judgments, people are seeing the judgments, they're believing the power of God, and they are becoming saved. So God is calling them out of there, right? Get out of Babylon, because I'm about to literally smite her. I'm about to extinguish her. For her sins are heaped high in heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities, right? He's remembered their sins. Punishment is near. And now we kind of see an angel talking back to heaven, okay? And so this angel is now talking back to heaven, almost talking back to God, and saying, pay her back as she has herself has paid back others, right? Basically, give her what she's due. This is almost mimics the same prayer that we saw of the martyrs in chapter 9, verse 9 and 10, right? And so the angel is basically telling God to give Babylon everything that she's due, right? I repay her double for her deeds, mix a double portion for her in her cup as she's mixed. And this idea of doubleness is an idea of completeness in the Old Testament. So whether it's good or bad, you borrow money from somebody and somebody says you don't pay them back, you pay them back double. And that just means I paid you and I paid you again. It's an idea of completeness. And so here, the angel is asking God to pay them back in completeness. Do not let Babylon get away from this. And of course, God wouldn't. In verse 8, for this reason, her plagues will come in a single day. Notice this, a single day. It's a theme throughout chapter 19, that Babylon will be destroyed in a very sudden, quick destruction. It will not be long. It will not be plagues. It will not be drawn out. It's going to be like that, right? Remember the power of God. And she will be burned up with fire, for the mighty is the Lord God who judged her. Notice this, the angel says mighty. That word mighty just means strong. Strong is the Lord, basically saying that no one can change the mind of God, who has already set in forth the judgment that Babylon will get. And then we're about to see three types of mourners, okay? So here's God saying Babylon's about to get destroyed. And now you're going to see three groups of people who are mourning that Babylon's going to destroy. The first one, verse 9, it's going to be the kings of the earth, the leaders, right? The leaders of the Antichrist movement, who committed sexual morality. Remember, this is talking about spiritual prostitution, that they are not following God. They're following Satan and idol worship. They lived in luxury with her. They will weep and wail over her when they see the smoke of her burning. Remember, the Euphrates is going to dry up. The kings will start to head west. And so as they're nearing the Euphrates River, they probably will see the smoke of Babylon in the air, right? So realize Babylon is a real place. This is not a spiritual metaphor. It's not a euphemism. It is a real place. And so here he says, I'm going to destroy her, and you will even see the smoke of her burning, and they will stand far off in fear. These kings will be powerless in her torment and say, Alas, alas, you great city, you mighty city, Babylon, for in a single hour your judgment has come. Notice that. Think about all that Babylon has gone through, right? All throughout the judgment, the world has been falling apart, but yet Babylon and the kingdom of the Antichrist has been growing, has been moving, has been doing better than anything else. And so now at the end of the world, what is left? It's the Antichrist kingdom, right? Which has withstood all of the judgments. And now you can imagine everybody thinks, man, this is going to stand, right? The Antichrist kingdom is the best of the best, right? They think he's God. But now when it suddenly gets destroyed in just a second, right? The world's going to look at it and say, uh-oh, I chose the wrong team, right? I was on the wrong side. So the kings are going to mourn. The second mourners are the mourners in verse 11. And these are the mourners of the merchants. The merchants. Because Babylon was a great city, the rest of the world catered to the great city. Okay? So the rest of the world did everything to the great city. Now, I know that some of you who watch this are older. That's okay. But those of you who are younger or like watching newer movies, this should give you an idea of the Hunger Games, right? The capital is Babylon, and the rest of the districts work to supply the crazy lifestyle that the capital lived. Okay, so kind of that's good metaphor, right? A good parable of what's happening. And so the merchants of the world, it says that they were weeping and mourning because nobody's going to buy. And there's a list of 28 items: gold, silver, pearls, wood, bronze, iron, cinnamon, spice, all these. This is the same list that we see in Ezekiel chapter 27, but these were the standard in the Old Testament, all these things to say, if you were rich and you were financially if you were financially stable, you didn't need support of anybody, you would have this, right? So all the suppliers of the world of all this stuff that really nobody needs, but the rich of the creme of the creme, the Antichrist used and ruled above everybody on this earth. Now all the merchants who sold him that, they are sad. And notice they even said, they even say in verse 14, it says, and all your delicacies and your splendors are lost to you, never to be found again. What's interesting about that is in the Greek, it's a double negative. And in Greek language, it's okay to use a double negative, unlike English. But when you use a double negative in Greek, it means absolutely never, ever, 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 ever. So here, even the merchants are telling Babylon that it's going down and they will never recover from this ever. And that's because God's about to literally send them to hell. But notice even the merchants in verse 16, they mourn just like the kings did. And they say, alas, alas, the great city. You are clothed in linen and purple and scarlet, jewels of pearl, for in a single hour all this wealth has been laid to waste. Notice they even say that Babylon was destroyed just like that. And then in verse 17, we get our final mourners of Babylon. And so these are the shipmasters, the seafaring man. We could call this the distribution routes of the world. UPS, FedEx, USPS, the kind of idea of how you move these goods, right? These merchants have these goods. How do they get to the Middle East? Well, that is everybody that takes them there, right? So the FedEx, the UPS, all those people, they're sad because now they have nobody that's going to buy goods, so they have nothing to give. And so these shipmasters, they are sad. They're sad. Once again, What city was like this great city? Telling us that Babylon was a great city. And they threw dust on their heads and they wept and they mourned. This is an Old Testament thing, right? They would take dust and they would throw it up to show that they were grieving. They were grieving. They knew Babylon was dead and they could not do anything about it. And once again, they say, alas, alas, the great city. They say the exact same things. For in a single hour, she has been laid waste, right? So the kings, the merchants, the distribution centers of the world, everybody is crying for Babylon because that means for them it's not so good, right? But notice verse 20, it changes just like that. Everybody is mourning, and then in verse 20, the angel cries up to heaven and he says, "Rejoice, rejoice over her, O heaven, and you saints, apostles, and prophets, all of the saved in heaven, rejoice because Babylon is destroyed, for God has given judgment for you against her." Right? Remember, all the way back in Revelation, we have the altar of souls, and they're crying out, "God, how long? How long till you avenge us? How long till you give this?" And now the angel is saying, "Rejoice because God has judged them. It is over," right? He has taken out Babylon. And a mighty angel took a stone up like a great millstone, and he threw it into the sea. Now, a millstone is a round stone. It's about 4 or 5 feet wide. It's about a foot thick. It's heavy, 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 right? Think of like a ton. And he throws it into the sea. What would happen? It instantly sink, right? He's using this as an illustration, right? This great big rock that's immovable and unbreakable is thrown into the sea and begins to sink. And the angel says, "So will Babylon. Babylon will sink in the great sea, will be destroyed. The great city will be thrown down with violence and will be found no more." And the rest of the chapter tells us what's going to happen to Babylon, right? It says, "The sound of harpists and musicians, flute players and trumpeters will be heralded in you no more. There will be no music. A world without music is a sad world. There will be no music. There will be craftsmen of any kind will be found in you no more. There will be nobody working in Babylon anymore. The sound of the meal, there will be no food in Babylon anymore. In the light of the lamp, there will be no people to light the lamps in Babylon no more. The voice of the bridegroom and the bride, there will be no love." So when you think of a city and you say the city has no music, it has no people working, it has no people, it has no love, it has no food, what good of a city is it? It's not. It's a destroyed city. Everybody is gone. God has judged. And then in the end of verse 23 and 24, we get some more reasons why Babylon was judged. "For your merchants were the great ones of the earth." The merchants of the people, they used their power to get ahead and to ascend on this earth. They didn't use their power to point people to God. They used their power to make people point to them. Their nations were deceived by their sorcery, their magic, their sorcery. That word sorcery is the word that in Greek is called pharmakia. It's the word that we get pharmacy. In other places in the New Testament, we see that as drugs. And so things that alter the mind. And so here, Babylon was in sorcery, it was in magic, it was in drugs that was altering people's mind. Verse 24, "And in her was found the blood of the prophets." Babylon killed all the Christians. That was their job. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they were called to do. That's what Satan bred them to do. And so that is the reason why God is going to finally destroy Babylon. Hope that makes sense. Once again, chapter 17 and 18 are by far the hardest chapters in Revelation, and you've made it through it. If you have any questions, feel free to text me, call me, comment on YouTube or whatever. But if not, we'll see you tomorrow in chapter 19. God bless.